This meeting was divided now on January 3rd, 2025. I'm location. The Francis, Scarletter, Elk, Yo, Willier, Cup, Geographic Surveyor.
The book it thank you for lesson it made from then the film several of mine and finish the book and art great rex books almost art the
by United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
roll call. Carter, Commissioner Uncle,
Commissioner Washington, Commissioner Hop, Commissioner Forever. Here we are full. I'm moving along public participation in accordance with the upper open public meeting. The Newark House of Great opens every public meeting comments. Each person speak at meetings. People it's 3 minutes. Speak on any subject or about minute. All speakers must state their name and address for the however it requires an in at say 10.4 a number of acting Japanese stream to benefit correct of the permit crit or regulate Therefore, please be advised that the Newark House Library will not guarantee any comments from persons to obscene material. Make statements which are considered false intimidation or with your personal intent. Sending any individual group because of race, color, religion, gender, or sexual orientation, or ethnicity, or makes commenting any blast or speaking intimately. The person who makes each statement can believe with their alarmist agreement discussion. Any person persisting speaking how to turn or interrupt he takes word. First speaker this evening in bond.
Good evening. Kim Palmer, 147 Riverside Court. Since I only had and my first thing, our residents still not receiving their portion of what they went through. Well, this has been going on since November. They get ready to go about a research treatment that December, January, February, March, on up to now. And people is like, where is my certification? Where is my fortune? I had not received my fortune. We still pay the portion that they need last year. If it wasn't for me, I would still probably be still in that same boat as well. But I emailed this board in hand because it's in mine. But it's like, so what do we do? What do we pay? Do we still pay the same thing? And then we still get our rent statements. Some people are not getting no rent, still not getting no rent statement. So I keep telling them pay the rent that you would normally pay. And once again, you say email these people. You get an answer back in 72 hours. Let's not manifest it at all. Because you're not getting no feedback whatsoever. And that's not professionalism for me. Because once again, I state 72 hours to get an answer back when you need something done ASAP. Because matter of fact, these people running around in bond, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to pay. Do I pay this one? Do I pay that? I confirm to the person that they need to talk to about their rent. But us being a rare property, you don't have a technician that person for us or what to do. So when they send an email to I, you heard them, she's really loyal. But Once again, she's one person and she's working by herself. So what do I tell these people? Secondly, are we required to have copies of what's in our files, such as how you need a breakdown about that house? Because first and foremost, we need to know that it's right. We had a big getting it when we was on the common side, so I don't see why we can't get it on the right side. Okay? And 38 seconds, that's it. I'll come back in September for something else. And y'all got to put together. Come on. Not working.
Turn around.
What? First of all, I want to say thank you, Ms. Spiker, for correcting your 3 minutes, because if that 5 minutes was on the album. First thing I want to talk about with the Section 8, here's you with my voice. If landlords change their management company, can the tenant have to send the rent to the new one or the old one? Is Section 8 and notify? Mr. Spicer was the management company. Now Mr. Logan is the management company. Now they're telling me to send it to Mr. Logan when I was always sending it to Mr. Spicer. How do we know Mr. Logan ain't the one who'll keep our money with the Spicer saying he ain't get paid? Do Section 8 know that this is what the landlords are doing? He ain't the management company. And first and foremost on that sheet, the RTA package, if it is a management company going to receive money, they're supposed to be on that package on Section 8 for the check them. But that's not been done, and that's what people are doing, man. Management company the box affect. Now, can a tenant send my money to a post office box? Mr. Spicer said the post office box used to locate in an advert, put in name. I need to know that, because that's being done now. And me, I'm not sending my money to no post office box, because the man hot, that's his post office box. I don't know who's seeing my money. Okay, how does Section 8 tenants are notified when they have days closed downstairs? The time. I wouldn't know until I come. I might have took off for work. They come and take some business and I found out they had closed. How can we be notified? Or can you let us know that it's on the website if he's going? We need to know their schedule, that they go on, they can train, and they're open. It's not fair to the few that comes down here. They don't be no the information. Because we aren't reason nobody to tell our concerns to. We do the annual plan, but there's other issues going on. So proud of we, boys, I'm concerned with the landlord and the flavor we around the staff at y'all. So I'm looking to see some kind of resolution for that as well. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Just a couple of getting these Motley, I'll be forwarding emails for these residents. I am outraged, extra guys, privatize the man. That's not gonna work. Everything that has been privatized thus far, Section 8 is families. If we take a management company, I would disagree. We're the public hearing, we're the public input. Secondly, we need to stop being held at 5 o'clock because people that work never get to come down to. That's why you never resolve issues. But people work. We want people to work. We want people to pay more than $20 a month rent, and they are doing that. But there's no time for them to come down and address the board, but to be at 5 o'clock. Secondly, you need to be moved around. You can't get down here in less than 45 minutes. You can't get out of here in less than 45 minutes. You can't pull over on the corner right here. You can't make a turn right here. You got to go block the box all day long on Ridge and Broad. And this is an impossible thing for regular people intended to access. It's building that's inaccessible for us. Section 8 clients receiving emails from the other side. Your decertification is abandoned. I'm going to forward over to Ms. Martin. I don't know if you guys had any idea of what's going on with the Newark Housing Authority, but it is horrible.
re-inspection, emergency inspection. What's that process? Well, people got rats running all over the apartment, Mr. Spicer, and you're bringing them, because you are. How does the person get an inspection? The city of Newark's code enforcement is non-existent. None of them are certified. They can't help anybody. And I need your people to come out and stop paying these landlords who are not providing a safe, habitable environment for residents. And it's happening every day. Section 8, that I said, the inspection duty to get that out. We need to have a public hearing. I'm requesting it right now for change in management to private relations. Tenants and community deserve to have the input in a major change to North Carolina Authority. This is not acceptable to what we are expecting here. I see some good things happening. I like the Vermella look. Sometimes that all the time over at our townhouses on Broadway. I really do there at night, and I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. Am I still down here by Hall Street? It looks good. I know it's the start. I know we're doing some things that Bradley Court. So, I know things take time. But at the end of the day, the process, you got to put people in the street. The landlord-tenant court process is still wrong. You still have managers who have not fixed folks' ledgers. And that needs to happen. And the working people who they are messing over month after month after month that you're illegally evicting because your personnel isn't doing the proper paperwork, not giving anybody a rent calculation paying Section 8 public housing. We need to fix that. That's the only reason why you got 800 empty units. Only reason you got 800 empty units is because they're putting people out with you. Thank you.
Margarita Mendez. Mendez or Amanda Reed.
So typical American revival. I just wanted to conclude that what is the turnaround time for inspection thing one and repair thing one? Pardon me. I had multiple inspections done for my room, and a lot of things that were supposed to be taken care of 2 years ago, there were from a doctor. Oh, girl, listen. So, okay, I'm trying to know everyone before. So I've had an inspection that on me dated from October 2023, where Ms. Burke was supposed to be affairs to my deal pertaining to black mold meat. All she did was come down, wipe the black mold off on my bathroom, we painted it. When I have paperwork, when I had inspections done like BPI, they didn't, that my bathroom needed to be gutted, only done. And it wasn't. My liver and down here probably, and the personnel that did my flooring down in my living room, she told him to basically just hang over it. That didn't solve the issue. I also have leased some of my roofs that have been there for the last at least 2 years. They haven't been taken care of. I just had an inspection 4 times this year, and each time they came out and said the same thing, and nothing has been done. Twice in January, once in February, and my last inspection was May 30th. I haven't had anything done. So I want to know, what can we do to better the turnaround time when it comes to repair and not getting due? That's the video today. Oh, and also, yes, you got that. And my oldest son, like Aaron, he can't be around black mold. I had to pen him down from my mother's house in summertime because he had this cough. And every time he's around my mother's barbecue, I'm like, fuck. I don't know what to do to the black mold or what's going on, but the black mold did it really bad. Like, really bad. The whole bathroom on soil, it covered. Under the house in the bedroom, mold. And then my other children's bedrooms, under the fire, mold. And
it's not being treated. It just, we're just doing Band-Aid stuff. So she had somebody come up the other day to, I guess, we put tile down, but that's where the mold is. And he didn't treat the hole. He just put a funny down, but put the new floor in them. So, yeah, and I had children. So, it carries it to have children. Ribbon them up.
If I can have Sharice pull up the call. Eden. So I wanted to take this opportunity to, I know a number of you have gotten some calls and concerns about staff. Yes, but those in all staff team regarding the management of our assets, how we are planning to move forward with the management of that. There's a lot of things that have been said that weren't actually said. So I thought the best way to address those things was to give you the same presentation that I give to the staff. Now that we'll take now, we get through with you all because you are aware of these items and talk about all these items throughout the course of this year. So what you're seeing is kind of the finished product, how we got to where we are and what we're trying to be to right up here. I think with the PowerPoint slide we put in front of you, you'll be able to follow along with me. I know. Go pretty fast. Next slide, please. So what I'm trying to make this is user friendly as possible. So I try to do like a who, what, bring, why, where. Like, so what we're talking about is third party property management. NHA that issued a request for proposals from private property management firms to provide private property management services for all of our assets. We put that RFP on the street in early July and expect it to close in early April, early August. NHA intended to bring a resolution to the Board of Commissioners at the September meeting for firms that we have selected or would like to select to manage our assets. At the close of the solicitation, the House of Board will review all the bids that have been submitted to us to determine which companies are our best fit to manage our assets, what companies have the same mindset and have the same principles that we have. Some items that we're explicitly looking for to manage companies that will take over operations of the assets in 60 to 90 days. Company that will absorb all staff that are currently working at the site. Management company that can and will provide KPI, key performance indicators to the house authority on a monthly basis. Again, those are just a few items that we'll be assessing after looking at dates, determining if that company is a good fit for someone to monitor. Next slide, please. The WIB as the kind of timeline, right? So from June to July 2025, we get your meetings. So we do have a handful of civil service employees. So we contacted the State Civil Service Board and notified them of our intent with the regulations. We didn't notify as the state warrant act states. We have to notify the appointing officials. There was a letter since the appointing official was where as well as president of the city council, as well as the chairman of the board here, one notified with the intent of the House and Board. equally so, according to the contractual bargaining agreement each union. Met with those unions yesterday in person for an hour and a half in walking the whole process with each union collectively to have those conversations with them. And then we met with all the staff, all 268 staff that we have. We met with them yesterday in person. We would do this exact same PowerPoint, answer as many questions as we could to give them an understanding of what is going on with the timeline of things. From June to September, again, we issued the RFP. I closed the CD on the 12th of August. And at that point, we'll have an opportunity to review those selections, to those fits to determine what company we want to companies are in. Next slide, please. So by October to December, if the resolution is approved at the September board meeting, it was the month of October to then enter to negotiation with those various firms to make sure that what we expect, they expect, and we all understand what we'll get into, have a clear picture of what the expectations are. Once we conclude those contract negotiations, of course, we exercise execution of those contracts and then move forward with ensuring that their transition time period, which allow the property management firm then work with the staff, absorbing, ensure that those staff have an opportunity to understand the culture of that agency, how that company runs their business in that company. At that time, we're talking 60 to 90 days from October 1st. So at that time, as the property management firms come in, individuals will go along with the house separate books. They'll be picked up by the firm that is managing the asset. That's why the last items of the grant will take to transit in staff all of AJT. Big questions? So, question I was asked quite a bit was, who is this affect? As we said, so restructuring that affects every department and every working group. It's the central office officer with the 500 calls break, as well as all belongs. This building exists to support the properties. So as the need for the properties changes, what the departments look like here have to change. As I articulated before, I've articulated a number of times, we had 8 in our HR department to support 300 staff. If you have 150 staff, then probably don't need 8 people. So those numbers will have to shrink at the offices in this building to accurately represent the support that you provide to the assets. So every department has been aware of the changes that will actually happen in your department. We work to work with them over the next couple of months to ensure that they're seeing this transition, that everyone understands what their function is in support of property management and how that should work. The next slide, please. The bigger item that we touched on was the why, right? And then we kind of heard it this afternoon already. But what we have here on the slide is, as you all are aware, at the beginning of this year, we had a budget shortfall of $4.5 million. So our revenue was $102,419,940. Our expenses are $107,003,072.04. That puts you at a deficit of $4.5 million. Those are just simple numbers, right? We walked into 2025 with $6.4 million in debt. So, you kind of do the math and say, hey, take 4.5 from 6.4 and you get 1.9. That's what I mean. So if you keep that same trajectory, you don't have enough money in 2026 to keep things the same. So as always, with the budget process, you can't make a decision 3 months in, 9 months in, like to 3 months. You can't make a decision 9 months or 10 months in because things have to change. Right? You have to start planning ahead. Kind of like with your house budget. Your personal finances, you typically are planning ahead for 2 weeks or 4 weeks or 6 weeks out of how am I going to pay this? Right? So with a bigger entity like we are, you start that planning process a little bit And we sat down for a couple of months of this year. We had some conversations with many to explore different avenues by which we could try to revert the situation that what we did do was take severe and substantial steps to reduce spending. And we have been successful at that, as you all can see for practice each month. We have been able to slow permanently. You are not spending as much as we had projected. And that's a good thing. As always, we're moving into the winter months, and we don't know winter holds. So we have the boilers go bad, there's another fire, or things of that nature, and that's going to automatically have an uptick in what you have to pay. So you have to always plan ahead. So you have the money here, as opposed to not planning, you don't have the money. Plus, it's not an option to not have money. Right? Equally so, as we talked about it in the various meetings, none of this is necessarily new. Kind of next slide, please. We go back to 2017 in our last independent assessment from the Housing Goods Trouble. And the previous executive director was interviewed. In his statements, it fully said that NHA is unable to pay its bills in a timely manner, including outstanding utility bills in excess of $4 million. He stated that NHA has cash flow issues, currently has a $5.5 million deficit, and is borrowing money from its development arm to fill funding gaps. So this is behavior that we had for a number of years. And it didn't change significantly from 2017 to 2020. We continue to burn through our savings account, which you see the Community Redevelopment Preparation Trust, the money that was there to cover the expenses of the housing, right? And the reality is, like all of us, you have money in your savings account for emergency expenses. But if you keep having money in your savings account, if you continue to burn through the money in your savings account, you continue to spend more than you're taking in and keep taking through the savings account, eventually you're not going to have enough money in your savings account to cover things in income, which is why we get to the, hey, we walked into 2025, 6.4 number, knowing that we were firmly 4.5. But at that point, there was no opportunity to change, to say, okay, we're going to stop that. Because if it was a large entity, you can't just change at the drop of a dime and say, we're having somebody hit that change your contracting process, your systems. There's a number of things you have to do to start to produce costs. Right? Equally so, as was articulated this afternoon, we haven't been doing a very good job of managing our assets. We're not there. There's no need to kind of lay the blame with anyone. Collectively, over the last 20 years, we have not maintained assets the way we need to maintain one. That's the bottom line. At the next slide, please. So we, as of 6:30, we are collecting 70% of the grid. Right? For our tenant council people, so it's 70%. What that translates to is $2,354,238.22, which is owed to the housing authority in that rank. From June 30th to January, those 6 months period, we're owed $2.3 million. But we still have 6 months of the year balance. That's just a fact. We budgeted on 90%. So we took a look at our budget and said, we're not going to collect 100% of the lead. Everybody is not going to pay us that. That's not even lie to ourselves and say that's not right. Let's try to be realistic and say we don't collect 90%. There's 10% of people who aren't going to pay us. And let's be okay with that. We're not okay, but let's go and get it, realize that's the reality and figure out our budget based on that amount of money. And that's what the budget was. But of that 90%, we're still 20% short. It is not possible to run a business when you are spending $100 every day and you're taking in $70. Because every day you're going to be $30 short. And at some point in time, you are going to reach back to that account for that $30 and it ain't going to be here. We don't have the luxury to think. We don't have the luxury to not have it when we need it. So when you see it's getting there, you have to take steps to make sure that we are able to open the doors January 1, 2046, with operational condition. That is the reality. We transitioned from one computer system to another computer system in January. Since then, since January 2nd, we have 3,269 outstanding workers. That's just from January, because we couldn't migrate over no workers. So in the last 6 months, everyone's collected a paycheck every 2 weeks. No one's missed a paycheck. There haven't been payroll issues. Paychecks have blown. But 3,269 work orders have not been pulled. That's probably indicative of a year. I'm saying? No, that's the one they have not heard. Correct. So that may be indicative of the young lady who just came up and said, hey, we had a couple of inspections and you ought to have gone through good work. She may be in that number, that 3,269 work. Now, again, in 2024, the ADT spent $408,000 in training staff. We had trainers from around the country come in and train people at the water department on how to manage property. We had individuals come in to inspire and react, show how to create that training. We spent a substantial sum of money to train people to do these things. And we're not seeing the return on the investment. It's that simple. I'm not being habituator. I'm not being laissez-faire. It's not I don't care. It's you hire me to manage a business. And I fail, you fail, if the doors of the business cannot open because we didn't mind the finances of the business. As I said month to month again, we are not a social service agency. We cannot run deficits. The state charter for all housing authorities in the state of New Jersey says you have to have a balanced budget at the yearly meeting. We don't have the luxury of saying we will figure it out for your own. We have to figure it out now. Our occupancy is at 89%. To be exact, 89.67%. That includes all our approved vacant units. So there's a number of units that we have, 513 to be exact, that are vacant but unapproved. That could be we're using capital dollars to improve the units. They give us 2 years to fix the unit, but still pay us if it needs. It could be that they have a patchwork. It is some type of fire, floods, the insurance claim will there's a number of categories that HUD will approve you for that unit to be vacant and continue to pay, which then gives us time to fix it and get back online to rent. When you back out those 513 units, we're at 77% off. Take a look under your package here. Like 77. That's the percentage of units that are actually occupied by them. Right? Again, that isn't something, and being realistic, that isn't something that's going to change. Again, if it's not the figure, as we looked at our fiscal needs assessments earlier in 2025, we need close to $200 million to improve all our assets to current scene. We get $24 million in that report. So it's a long-term plan, right? What we have insured is in 2024, there was $5.6 million instead to just turn units, to make units available for families to use. This year, 2025, was a little over $8 million that we set aside just to turn units for families to use. That's a third of what we didn't have to do. Right? So we are actually allocating money to move the units from not being able to have someone there to being able to have someone there. But when you have so many, it takes time. Equally so, if you have a large number of families that are duly in need of emergency transfer. So there is a significant number, which you see in your board report, families that historically had done emergency transfer and said, we understand it's an emergency, are we going to get back to you? And 2-3 years go by and you're still in that same unit. So what we have said in 2024 was if it's an emergency, you need to find them here. Or you need to move them into a hotel, fix the unit that they're living in, and move them back. But you cannot say something is an emergency and go on about your business. These are the real life situations that we have continued to deal with and have continued to work with on a daily basis. Now, we haven't gone about it, we'll get to it, we'll get to it. We sat down at the board and had multiple conversations at our committee about the actions we are taking every month. Every 60 days, the committees hold us accountable. The questions that you all have, to giving you all more detail, to providing pictures, to having vendors come before you to answer questions that you may have, a level of accountability. And that's what has to happen. But the reality is, when City of Newark agreed to give the housing authority the bond to buy that asset, which was he called them the Roseman properties, or 3 Hope 6 properties. Part of that language said the housing authority would have a third-party contractor manage an asset. In the bond, it explicitly said that the city gave to us that we won't get it. That is a very telltale sign when someone says, hey, I will loan you the money to do something, but you can't fix it yourself. You gotta have somebody else who will even match that. Right? So we know with the problem. We haven't been digging the job well. That's, again, there's no point in trying to place the blame. There's no point in trying to figure out who did it and when they did it and all that stuff. Because it has to be fixed. The way that we ensure that A, we're able to manage our assets, and more importantly, B, that people still have jobs, is to have people come in to manage our assets who specialize in bonds. They are management companies that do management. So to allow them to come in to manage your assets. Again, what we have said and what we're looking for in our solicitation are companies that have to absorb this step. If you're working at Pennington Court today, a new management company comes in tomorrow, you will continue working at heat. Will the salary be the exact same? Probably not. As I said yesterday, I've said today, that's something you take into consideration. I was looking at the bids I'm in there. Well, how much are the benefits going to be the same? No, they won't. Sure, private companies are not for our future. That's just the reality of it. Would you have health care still? Yes. That'd be the same as in here, the Newark Hospital? No, they're not part of the state-funded healthcare system like we are. So there are certain entitlements that the housing authority has that also contribute to our rates and costs. All of our retirees get medical and dental for them, their spouse, if they have children under 26, for the rest of their life. And we pay for that. If they have Medicaid and Medicare, if they and all the different CEPs, we reimburse them quarterly for the rest of their life. That is something that the Board of Education doesn't do, Essex County doesn't do, the city doesn't do, near colleges doesn't do. We have the best package in the area. And that package costs money. We cannot continue to float those legacy costs. Again, this isn't any different than what's going on in this state. New Jersey Transit Authority has significant unobligated patient liabilities that they have not been able to help. They're funded by the state, so the state will allow them to fund that. We can't fund that. We have to have that $2.9 billion set aside every year for our retirees. No ifs, ands, or buts. It's what we have to do. Right? So we have various financial obligations that require us to move differently than some of our people. It would not be in good faith for us to try to go back to our retirees and say, let's renegotiate when you retire from 5 years. Well, this is costing me too much money. Let's see what we can do. We make those obligations, but keep those up. Right now. Now, going forward, we have to figure out how to make business. And the first thing that comes to my mind is, how are we going to provide better service for our residents? How are we going to maintain the properties that we have? And if we're not able to do it, and you find someone who is, I have mentioned to you all a number of times, we don't hear people come up here talking about reading towels, talking about City Senior, GB, Dane, Montgomery Heights, Ashton, Bullhard. These are all our properties, but we have the companies married to Amen. They don't come up. So those assets are being managed. And they're being managed well enough that people don't need to count them full. So why would I not have those companies come in and do what they're doing there at our property? There's no difference in those properties and our property. We've had the conversation day in and day out about punishment and how it's met. The project-based section property. Our RAD properties are project-based section properties. There's a marked difference in how the properties are marked. Dixie White is a senior property with 206 units, and Branchbrook is a senior property with 199 units, 5 stories. The buildings are very similar. But you look at the occupancy, if you look at the revenue, if you look at the research, there's a significant difference. What is the difference? The match. Again, you have to do things differently if you just don't have the money that we're going to do it differently. Then the most humane way to do it is ensure that staff that we have here today are able to still have some. Because if we don't, again, from a budget perspective, then we have to say, hey, we're not going to do that. But then we have to ask the question, okay, so how are we going to cut $4 billion next year? Where did that going to come from? Right? And that's the reality one. So our expectation is that we will have large-scale management companies who do this nationally give us bids. And they will tell us how we're going to transition. What the plan is to transition our staff onto their books. What is the training term involves that? Where's the probationary period? Where's the salary that they pay? Where the benefits package? How are they going to get us to 96? How are they going to ensure that we pass inspired inspection? We are asking fundamental property management questions to them so he can weed out who can do the job and who can't do the job. Understanding that they are going to have to report to us on a monthly basis, which finance will come to their finals, modernization will guild inspect their units to make sure things are going well. Occupancy, which will be rebranded compliance, will be going out to those assets and looking at the files to make sure that you're pulled from the wait list, that you are pulled from the witness walkthrough. That's your birth certificate, your ID, all the necessary documents are in your file. The file is put together and it is filed correctly. We will do the oversight to make sure it is done correctly. That then gives us an opportunity, A, to get from under the financial position that we're in, and B, start to talk about where does it look like for your house ability to manage that. Because we still have Hope 6 properties that are ending their confinement kit. Typically, Hope 6 properties have tax credits associated. They have a 15 to 20 year likable tax. And once the investors have gotten what they can up in tax credits, they don't stay around. Which then comes back to housing authority and say, well, what do you want to do with these properties? And there are 9 properties that have reached out to us thus far and say, hey, we're getting to that 15-year compliance period. You want to buy this down? Of course, we have an interest in preserving affordable housing, but it can't be that the house authority buy back a property that's already underperforming underwater, right? So we have to be able to understand what these assets look like and plan ahead to manage those assets, to take those assets back at the owner. We have to determine, have a either management company manager or the BBA's manager. And what does that look like? These are all business questions that we have to address. And it's never, you had the one thing and move on to the next. Had the one thing and equal to the next. It's see things happening at things. Was always, as I said to the staff, which we then provided them an FAQ sheet that all of you have, with there's 43 different random questions that we feel that people are going to ask, so they're able to look at a sheet to then maybe answer some of their questions. Right. And this was a 2.5 hour week with all staff yesterday. We said, hey, as the process continues, we will continue to have these conversations. And you'll get something in writing from my office once the solicitations come in and before we go to the board section. We are attempting to have conversations with people as things are happening, as opposed to having conversations with people after something has happened. Right? But that's the best you can do. There are a lot of questions that people have, or what's going to happen with this? What's going to happen with that? What I keep saying is we have to see what happens once it bids them. Because if we don't gain qualified vendors, then we're going to sit down with the board in September and say, we got to figure something else out. Right? But if we do have qualified vendors, then we sit down with the board and say, well, this is what they're going to offer. And this is what our share of that will be. And considering we don't have the obligations of overhead for those staff, that's how it affects our bottom line. Within allows the agency to solve. And the first thing you want to do in business is to make sure that you're spending $100, at least you bring in $100. Ideally more, but at least you want it to solve. Right? But the conversation was had with the staff. The conversation was had in a very humane manner. Continue to all of our obligations by the regulations and statutes to ensure that everyone understands that no one is being left out the cold. No one is not going to have a job. It's just going to look different where you are. And there will have to be some restructuring because, again, if our numbers here are smaller, then you don't need that many people to support. Because, again, we, in this building exists to support sites. So I kind of paused there to answer the questions. I know each of you have gotten those calls, emails, and heard this evening individuals that are adamantly opposed to it. But again, I always prefer you. There's a question to that touch on about the public.
I have a question. So, how are we handling the guy that had like 23 and a half years on little car authority depending on this paper?
Good question. You got first question to ask the question. It's actually a sheet in your packet that goes with that list. According to each contractual party in the agreement, there's a seniority list. And there are a number of assets that we know we're going to have to continue to manage just because of the nature of that property. Example I've used is Bradley Court. No one's going to take over managing Bradley Court. Period. We're going to have to continue to manage Bradley Court. There are a number of assets that we'll have to continue to manage. So by seniority, we go through that list, and we met with those people yesterday. They said, you have to know, what we did was we said, hey, we're going to need 50. And this is how many people by classification that we're going to need. And based on seniority, you people step. So we sat and talked with each of them. He said, hey, we're going to need 4 managers. So we brought 6 managers into the room. You take some people that started to retire and say, hey, these are some properties we are anticipating we're going to continue to manage. This is what the properties will look like. This is what the numbers will look like. If you're interested, we want you to know now. So again, you can begin to make decisions, informed decisions with your family. Maintenance, supers, etc. The challenge on the maintenance side is you have some maintenance, which again, you're having this breakdown. You have some maintenance that have been there for 39 years. So although 23 years is a good amount of time, if I need 12 maintenance people, at 23 years, you're 15, I can't help. Because the 14 people above you have more seniority. And contractually, I'm obligated to go by seniority down that. What happens if you have 23 years, you're fully vested, so you get a pension. As I've told everyone, no one will miss a paycheck. So if by some chance, once we roll people out of our system, if it's a mid-pay period at the their new employer, we will give you another paycheck. So you're going to roll into the new job, and you're going to have a paycheck in 2 years. No one will miss a paycheck. Right? But if you choose not to take the job, I can help you. At some point in time, the job here won't exist, so I can give you a paycheck. But as long as you will have seniority on that list, you will have a job. On top of some of the maintenance specifically, if you're the maintenance supervisor, file say, I'm going to retire. So we'll be going back through that list as we formalize those conversations, we go back down that seniority list and say, hey, the gentleman that had 39 years is retired. One gentleman that had 43 years, he's retired. So we continue to go down the list based on their seniority. And it's the time in that position, not the time of the housing. So we've had people come into HRs and make calls. They said, I've been at the agency for 40 years. How are you going to give this to me? We were. We appreciate your service. You gave service award yesterday. You gave bonuses for passing inspections last year, for being different metrics according to their contract. So it wasn't just a doom and gloom meeting, right? But if you came in as a maintenance tech and after 20 years you became a maintenance supervisor, if you had 20 years seniority after maintenance, you became a maintenance supervisor, you started at the bottom of the maintenance supervisor award. So holistically, you may have 40 years, but you only have 20 years as a maintenance supervisor. So when we're looking at the seniority list for maintenance supervisor, you take the person that had the most seniority as a maintenance supervisor. And there is no bumping back to a new class to an old classification now. You can't do that. And that's in accordance with their contract, their union contract. Sorry, very long answer to a short thing.
What the Newark you say? Outside of what they be up.
So I believe that's important. You're doing it to the widest scale of what needs to happen.
Hope Steve I can stop. People that
What's up, this bro? What the shit of this it's made like it's make power.
it's in my layoffs. It's in people. What does that look like state value? Let's say it should be something there. And then in turn talk earlier about specifications and a that relation housing that the art that's put out. Is that the base for minimum wages? Is that good criteria?
Easiest one to answer is yes, the liberal wages. You will have the resolution that says we contract. They have law. So yes. Plan B, we had a plan B and a plan C and plan B, right? You have to have these. Plan B is to put the solicitation out. We're going to get some company that. So what plan B would look like is if you have respondents, but you don't have enough respondents that want to manage all your properties. You end up having a hybrid mix of some properties that they manage via management, some properties have to stay in house. So that would be a plan B. Okay, we have 24 properties, and 8 of them are being managed by someone else, and 60 are being managed by us. That would be plan B. We would then have to determine where cuts can be made next year. If those cuts will allow us to get to how much the savings account to float that deficit, because it would still be a deficit, right? A plan C would be for us to kind of keep it real global as it is. And then as we get closer to the end of the fiscal year in October, we have to sit down with the various committees of the board to determine where layoffs have to happen. Because you just wouldn't have enough money, right? So we'll assume that a $4 million deficit. You got 1.9 in your bank, and you're at a $2.1 million. So where can we make layoffs? Where there be cuts to get to zero? So those are the 3 proposals we have on the table. Again, our intent is always the best, which is to make sure everyone continues. Everyone continues.
You get this formality of things. Yeah. So all to be concept in the community, yesterday, the one of the process. Yeah, this the matter. Needless. Plainly. This doesn't work out.
people are all excited about they say framework of reality. Some of one got with tools, someone else.
So I think that one person argues about then who might be it so that in that place 60 young corporate people come to the microphone is a part of it as me that then what you do out in the back way you should be back down. Right. So that is something in the oxymoron way. I'm gonna fight people at the same time while we showing the regular QOP say that but they're probably in that. So you got to figure that out like it's me. People either which the guy be so very long. I'm sticking yes. All right, the lawn is Zeke too because he should shut down some places that he needed to be information on. He should shut down or not. He, engineered when I said it substance out of it. So
That should be in your, that might be in your, get on the back of your very last portion of each packet, every item that you all requested.
So actually, you're gonna put this out. Then also the I don't know it's clarified, it's specification in for time and allocation employment prior to trying to set the right. And so I'll look both emotionally, if there's something that it's also talks about, but they keep saying that way I'll go to company I'll I might come in, we may come in, but well, you are. I spit it out, you don't need. That's a problem. Right? On a vesting, especially if somebody say, in my right mind, I still have to understand what somebody looked livable when still trying to about my family. I get here, I'm 3 years in, he's up now and I'm 8 all of it. Yeah, absolutely. Some time ago, that's a work that means folks a certain period of time for any kind of separation. Take a year. It's 6 months. And this speak they about this kind of situation. But Warren Oscar will believe that everybody that is been those is a bullet years, 4 years, over the next year, she everybody being process. Okay, right. In that way, so I really believe that problem should be looked at again. I know you say both the union folks talk about CRE was like if I'm here, even if I may be vested, I think that 25 to 23 in the pension is vested. But the 25 needs to get fitted. Somebody will here at tore ACL, had to jump up and move, call, sign, gravel, here's some amount of days, right? And you can still see that they're going to be out of here in that 25, and you see that kind of fear protection. I can bust here's some artwork boxes, okay? But the never's out. I believe it's a good thing that you thought. That the thoughts you out that all the level you work yet. Or you take the next set up and it can still be about it, tighten up or some stuff. That's why we should never follow. See that.
Well, group, we have no problem getting the information, and some of the group can provide materials. That's what I kept saying to yesterday. It's all pie inside, it's all theoretical, so I didn't get it. And like that, he said what the company said. If those terms are agreeable to the office, the executive office, enter the fore. Now, at that point in time, you all will be able to see it side-by-side analysis of this will we provide, this company A, company E, company C provide, right? Well, without having a company A, B, or C, it's kind of hard to compare apples and apples, right? And that's the challenge of trying to keep people aware praise as they're happy, because everyone wants to know the end result, but you're trying there, so we're not there, right? So we're not going to placate people or kind of shove them aside. We don't have the information because we have bids, because the bid time. But again, we definitely will take a look at that. The document that you requested, I say there's 39 people collectively EQT that are at 23 or above. I think that may be a board conversation to ask, right? The question becomes from a legal standpoint and a contractual standpoint of who determined what is. Why was 23 better than 22? What subjective decision did you make that it encumbers, and I'm not saying he was a person, but the agency that encumbers the housing authority to obligate itself to 23, 22, 21, 21 and a half. I'm 22 years and 30 and 259 days. Why they can stop it there as opposed to something else? And what is the financial implications of it?
There's very specific verbiage that we can call what's the management present. I go at a board. There is particular verbs that people like to see and include and what they offer in the champion.
And I don't have a problem with any of that. I think it's up to it here.
I would like to the company taking whatever they want to get. That's done.
Agree.
Let's get that.
Agree.
We talked about this. Being proactive. And really
To again, just touch on a few of the items that we talked about earlier that came up for the housing rate typically posts online and on our front doors in Poppy School. If that has not been happening, I'm gonna make sure that that's happy historically. If it were public housing or HCE, we're another buyer, so you get put sign up people on our. Again, a lot of this was talking about Section 8, right? So if you have a lease, your lease has a landlord on it. So you should continue paying to the landlord on your lease. If the 8 comes out, you end up in court. The questions might be, the legal document is your lease. And until you get a letter from a new owner or from a new management company saying, hey, I am your management company effective this date, sometimes they will give you an amended lease to reflect their information. Sometimes they don't. But until you have somebody in writing that directs you to pay elsewhere, you should pay wherever's on your lease, because that's a legal binding document. I don't think it makes a difference if you send that to a PO box, to someone's house, whatnot. Wherever you're directed to in writing to forward your money, where you should forward your money to. There's someone there. Again, just like you do, like everyone I would recommend, hey, it's a money order, keep a copy of the stuff, so quote unquote gets lost, you can track. This would be check, and all those are canceled check, and show people where the check is actually drafted. So it is possible to find out where things are supposed to be going to and where they're not. In the Section 8 program, there's a change in ownership that has to be communicated to the housing authority. I'm not confident I would have to defer to Philip. There's a change in managing that have to be to the house. So Philip is thinking, yes. So if there is a management agent change, then that will come through us. You go out, right? What often happens is you get, I say mom and pop, when I say mom and pop, with small landlords who are doing their own thing, right?
So just like our participants, they come in, they have a break, and we give them all this paper and tell them all these things. And just like our participants, they go, and they're silent. And they just try to get to the end where you get the voucher. If you're trying to get to the housing for the voucher. If you're a landlord, you're trying to get to the end where you put your electronic funds information in to find out where the money gets direct deposit. And then weeks go by, months go by, you start dealing with people, and then you have to start following some of the procedures that you signed off on, that you heard, that you weren't really listening. You're thinking about how you're going to spend that money, where you're going to start looking for that unit. And then you start doing things that you hear, that people told you should do. It is all good when something goes wrong. And then you call the housing authority, where you get in touch with an inspector, and they tell you what the right process is one of two things. It's either, oh, my landlord didn't tell me yet, I'm about to get it. Or vice versa, I hope my tenant don't know that I didn't want $1 back. Right? And then someone gets angry and comes back to HC. So I've done a number of calls, I've done calls that did with the larger landlords we have to make sure that things are flowing smoothly, try to get through to keys. And you hear about people leasing it up before the inspection. And they're saying, well, you didn't pay. Well, you said someone moved in April 1st, but the lease says May 1st. So I'm going to call you that. Oh, the band was about the homeless and in response when this lease to him. But you understood when you go into the program, they get looking 1, 2, 3, not 1, 3, 2. So now you want me to pay you an extra month, and we may have found vibrations in the unit. You may have not fixed the unit to be taxed or inspected for someone to live in it for 2 months later, but you want that money. Because you wanted to do, as the landlord, what you wanted to fix somebody. Equally so, we all, I know some of the commissioner, specific individuals, but we have told you need to move from this unit. You are having wagering issues with the landlord is not being responsive. The unit has failed inspection, you need to move. And the tenant will refuse to move. And the tenant will say, don't worry about it, Ivan. It's been fixed. It's going to be okay. I'm comfortable. It's 6 months later, 9 months later, them and the landlord ain't getting along, and they got a lot longer back like your problem saying, well, he did. Man, we told you to move 6 months ago. We even issued you a voucher to remove it. What happened? I didn't want to move. But now you want me to get back on the landlord. We all have to take some accountability in this, and we're not trying to shut our responsibility at all. There are things that we have to work on. But oftentimes, some of the things that were brought up this afternoon are things between the landlord and the tenant that people are trying to make deals. People are trying to move things along as fast as possible. When in actuality, things are set up for a reason to safeguard you against these things. And when you start trying to go around the system, it makes it very challenging to come back into the system. Because then you got to tell us everything that went wrong. And oftentimes that means for me to recoup the money from the landlord. And then the landlord can be looking at you saying, you got to go. Then you're coming back at us. And we're saying, well, the landlord has to enforce their lease. It is not uncommon for us to have conversations with the landlord. The landlord tells us, well, the tenant owes me $6,000 and they move. Well, if the unit failed, we hoping that they can move. Well, you didn't tell me that they were going to move. We told you the unit failed. And you signed the paperwork that told you after you failed inspections. And we're going to reissue the voucher. Did you forget that part? But you didn't send a letter. But I got your signature for you when we signed the document saying you understand. You are real quick to get my money, but you aren't all that quick to follow my rules. Right? So there has to be an understanding between the parties that everyone has a job to do. We don't enforce leases on housing choice voucher. The lease is between the land, between the owner, and the tenant. If something goes awry, you go to court. You don't come to us. If they want to move, they have a right to request to move. And if we deem that is acceptable, we issue them a voucher to move. They shouldn't be behind in 3-4 months of rent, because that means they aren't paying their portion. But then again, the landlord wants the money. He wants our stream of money. So he's going to keep taking our check and telling them, wait up about, don't worry about it, give me these.
And then when they get tired of it, they say, well, you owe me 6 months of rent, now I'm going out. Why'd you work for your 6 months down? Now you need to take them to court, which may take another 12 months. But then you want the housing authority to meet. There's no mediation. You should have had that conversation with the caseworker where they were behind their 60 days. So he could have reached out to say, hey, your apartment just a recertification, because if you're actually by your tuition, your income check, which is changing how much we pay or how much they pay. But that didn't happen because you didn't notify us. And I assured you, when Miss Susie is out there losing her job, and she out there trying to find another job, she got another job, she had a gig on the side trying to make things work. The last thing she worried about doing is called housing, just saying, hey, my income dropped. But we have those things happen as well. We try to our best to go back as much as we need to help out. But there's a time period. There's typically 120 days, 180 days that we can go back to change. After a certain period of time, well, we could, but the federal government said that we have to get those costs and they're not going to waste the money.
So then it comes right back to us again, man.
Where that money must come from? You signed the paper saying you wanted to sue, right? So it is never a one size fits all. Like when it comes to these, we own it full. That there are things you have to do to improve. There are things you have to ETA to that. The things you talked about this after year aren't things that we necessarily have not before. Those are things that landlord and tenant have to work out, and we have to make sure, and I don't know how, so I'm always hoping to hear better, how we ensure that the participant and the owner understand their obligations when they walk out the door. Because everyone signed the paper, everyone's happy. It could good when the lights start coming in. You know, Ms. Jones is happy and she's calling the commissioner where she reads up and she gets good. And then they also called us, let things go bad. And then we're trying to dig through it, trying to figure out how we could help out or rip eating butt. He started dying and going, why didn't he? Well, maybe he's so alive. And then a whole lot of questions have got you sever and salmon the blue spirituality ball.
Questions I can answer from board.
Five. You're still five. I know we had a conversation last week at the work session where you articulated that, hey, they mentioned five in their last report. And we had that conversation with Mankin and Waddell, making expert second home. They're in the process of getting that, but as of jail with
So
the out. Well, surely, well, he created homelessness. So I have
Instead, 5 people. I don't even know the process, but I had the process, but we are 5 people. 5 people, you know, they got to go out there, they go out there and expect.
And then you got to investigate that and discover what's the process of the fire. And what is
how many people we have?
200, 300, like it's 300 divided by 5.
Each one of those people, this number of people that they have to go out and meet with to do an inspection, that gives them my time, maybe get this information off of here. Like,
we cannot be bombarded by this triangular effect of stuff that is happening. Like we're sitting up here talking about possible changes in movement in the organization. You under financial stuff that happened that in 17 that's touching us now. Like the impact of what's going on with the federal government, but then we create the homeless. There'll be people that found the pockets and can't do stuff. And it's like we have to kind of raise up there, try to be about it's supposed to do here, it's supposed to be here. And, you know, although no folks may be getting called and understood, it's probably out of the process. So that we understand the process, it can make the process people a little bit better. It's not about being contentious. It ain't easy about trying to fight the people system. You're just trying to keep people for a while.
Alcohol process, everybody move on to people.
is that not how many people have to get inspection? All that stuff. Right now, how many people have to get inspection?
So I would defer to Philip at that number.
It would also, if I ask you, what is considered the first? I got a child with autism. I need an inspection, but here's doubtful. Right? What's considered what was first?
Can you answer that before I go list your figure out? Sure. So would hey, if I got to run the object out on chin, I understood that those were questions that you wanted us to incorporate in all the reports going forward. So in next month's report or the next month report you'll see that it doesn't say just inspections, after a number of outstanding inspections, number of emergency inspections. So it's my understanding we're adding things to the report and we'll provide on a monthly basis. I didn't understand that you wanted those to report actions. All right, so I will take that as I would understand. I will I'll let Philip try to pull us out. Yeah. We could go from tomorrow.
As far as the emergency inspection, for this to be thing, they have the child or say some homelessness is not considered an emergency inspection. An emergency inspection is when there's a unit that was deemed an emergency where it's a light hazard, like there's a fire or a damage to a unit that makes you unhabitable. There's a bad flood. If there is a situation where there's severe mold, something where there's a requirement for them to go in and do inspection to make sure that child or that person is not in a hazardous condition where they are safety emergency. Other things are urgent. And as far as if I follow up on the comment about 8 weeks, there's not a delay anymore. There's not been for a while. I did recently get a issue, but I only got that. I recently got that inquiry from, there were other tenants this week on Monday who received permanent RTA. They explained to her that there was a delay to 3 weeks. It was not because she wanted her to move in immediately. Well, because she was afraid, I think they were afraid that they were about to be terminated because they were given their voucher in March. When they were given their voucher in March, they held on to it and did not submit an RTA until this Monday, the 21st. And when that was turned in, they, of course, said, well, how soon does I know about the fire? Well, as I explained before, that once an RTA is turned in, there's a clock stop. There's no more the time's not took me under a doctor's years. So in the event that we do go through treatment and it does not pass inspection, they will, given time, or on to their voucher for the call COVID time. So it was 3 weeks. It took us to determine that after all the inspection that we done, that it passed. Well, if they had like key left on their voucher, but this to they're now getting that too, along with the 3 that will kill up doing the time that will be on the profit. Now, when this particular one did come out and said that they were worried because they didn't understand, they thought that their vouchers expire because they waited until July 21st, turning their voucher. That was not the case. It will not expire now we have this RTA in, and it did. Now, the inspections are not 8 weeks now. They have moved around. Stick up here with you on our report. The number has increased practically just in the last 2 months when we are improving our numbers. So it is, of course, I'm not saying that, our hands are clean, that we had not had a flow properly turnaround, but it has drastically improved and it is continuing to improve. And we are monitoring that closely. And I've had an interaction with conversation with our inspectors frequently we're going through because I understand and I'm making sure to be aware that I have to go there when we ask a question about you. So I want to make sure that we are monitoring that until we make very clear you about that what the concern. So we are veteran and sometimes the invitation is not I think that the participants don't really understand always, even though we blame for them things that either there's somebody calling a panic, we call the panic when we're put down. And on that one particular one, people
It might be shared experience. Car. That's a lot I try to figure out. Like, what's the steps in the process?
But you just, I'm thinking of the voucher,
By 23rd, 24th, right? Yeah, they can say, hey, you got to find the apartment. Find the apartment next Thursday, give out 30%. I'll get apartment. Come in, you put in the RTA, you get all the paperwork done. You see that he pushed the wall. Now, who's the person that handle it after that? That says, oh, 3 weeks, okay, well, come out and inspect. 9 weeks, they're going to come out and inspect.
what the faster year fall, we talk about that. We're excited that we are rolling out the office. We got some of the landlords already rolled. We find out that we're starting with our new software, blah, 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 yada. So now, starting in August, when they're coming in there, RTAs, they won't be able to submit a paper RTA that will be misdocumented. They'll be fired to clarify for you that they were born. You know, it all information coming there, all that up reported that are being fed, you know, they're taking the pack on the property, all that is on that system that you're entering. So once that is entered, there is no longer a requirement for someone to check or read, hey, they left that blank, or they didn't fill that card, they did that. Because we'll no longer allow landlords to do that. You have several landlords who are now signed up and ready to start off locked and August. And we're, again, optimistic that this is going to eat to that factor when it comes to right over the arcade.
Commissioner Watkins, this is one of can you hear us? So we're looking into resolution, I for approval, the June 2025 board report. Are questions or comments about board? Back to the board and second, Reaser Carter.
Yes.
Mr. Council.
Yes.
Commissioner Washington.
Yes.
Commissioner Hopper. Yes. Chairman Nolan. Yes. Going to the board transcript for the DD 2025. Questions that you expect? Yeah. Google. Mr. Hopper. Motion. Back. Second, Commissioner Bowe. Commissioner Carter.
Yes.
Commissioner Comstock. Yes. Commissioner Watkins.
Yes.
Commissioner Hop.
Yes.
Chair Owen.
Yes.
Moving into resolution. Procurement H25240701 that North Hub for approved and adoption North Hub. Sure. Any questions during that? Not. Both. Commissioner Carter. Commissioner Council. Yes. Commissioner Washington.
Yes.
Commissioner Jeremy.
Yeah.
Absent. Legal H25240702. Your House Authority Board using so upper tier Elbows. Honor of George.
Motion to accept.
Second, Carter.
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson.
Yes.
Commissioner Washington.
Yes.
Commissioner Hop. Chairman Wilson.
Yeah.
Motion is approved.
legal H25240703 of Newark County Board Teacher authorized assignment of the project-based shelter at complex of our areas securities to lender limit real estate at Oakland.
Mr. Chair,
Rexburg.
had an opportunity to go to facility speech with numerous residents. We don't keep check out so various departments. And you stand into the department, to make sure that we were being in the right direction. Mistakenly advised those other people that has been some dramatic work, but we can done for the separate. There's some work being done. Many of the residents I spoke to in the hall of elevator. There was some apartments over the door. They talk about the survey said that customer service out how it was changed the house changed, and then responsiveness of the maintenance folks that are in the book.
Roll call vote. Commissioner Farrer, Mr. Camp, Commissioner Washington, Commissioner Hawk, Chairman Moore.
Yeah.
Please leave your
Please leave your message for 9.
That there. Okay, I know this is one I actually wanted to talk about. So can we skip this one? Yes. Or skip that director after you complete two? Or don't need to go on that like
housing like how you like.
you wanted to talk about this.
No work. We'll come back. CRPC books.
8.
So CRPT H25240705. That the Newark House Authority Board of Commissioners authorized the Decker Record execute a contract of sale the property books on sale page at property located at Suite 48 Parent Boulevard, Newark, New Jersey, block 25E01, block 202, a baby property consists of a pot of 1 acre, fire plaza LLC for a 1.4.
Over.
Second, Commissioner Carter. Yes. Commissioner Council.
Yes.
You report. Commissioner Hawk. Yes. Chairman.
Yeah.
CRPT 85P4 that 07 that yield out to the point each authorizing use Berkeley property located 6 C94 Army Street Newark Air Block 101 Clock 80 measure 148. The Department Captain Williams of C. Newark for a term of 5 years at yearly amount $8,000. Questions on that one?
Commissioner Hart, Commissioner Council,
Washington.
Commissioner Hart.
Please read your
Your chair H24, that's 24, H25, that's Center of the Newark Housing Authority Board of Commissioners authorized executive breakfast contract, even say breakfast construction, provide aids by funding services for initial term 2 years in an amount of $1,404,720 per year, with options to renew indicate discretion for key issue one term at the amount of $5,618,900 for 4 years churches.
Lead for Mr. Chair.
Richard.
No, we have one of those in the organ the beach. Okay, ultimately, and hopefully, you'll have the movement. One was suggested about about these initiative folks of the board, our board. You understand that they got to reach out to local vendor where they will not even that was styled from the art. We talked about that.
So we did have the lot coverage. But what good? Roll call, Commissioner Farr, Review Council, Mr. Quantum, Commissioner Hawk, Chairman Moore.
Yeah.
Redevelopment H2524070B. That the New York Central Board of Commissioners authorized that they amend the existing contract. Silver, Apple, Earth, the Board of Maine, sir. By increasing cost for the third and final 1-year term, $750,000. Aggregate contract number $1,750,000. This is a late starter. I'm going to have our chief administrative officer, he's the Bay Corner, explain why is what start.
Giving interpretations. The original contract was awarded by 1.3. The terms of that contract were for one initial 1 year for $500,000 to 1 year extension, not to keep $1.5 million. Unfortunately, we've had some emergency repair that had to be done, including some insurance violations that were walked through trucks. But that ended up affecting monetary budget. In this resolution, we went brief for that. And last year to actually it be 750 so that the regular project amount will be billable. Oops. Mr. Chair. The response got and only a demon, I think they had 24 hours. And I know we had some service 8 weeks also with seeking. What's important is I don't know what as the language change.
As far as doctrine, no.
Commissioner Carter? Commissioner Gump? Watson? Commissioner Hart? Chair no. Yes. Occupancy of within the H2 pod that or that those and then you're not. Resolution that the it authorizes executive director to make minor revision to the increases in time frame 30 days for removal of personal property on the death of a soul can. That happened. This water for the last recap the boring major Washington by the is a policy grouping from 14 days expiration of someone so also under 14 days per articulated in motions can be entertained from the floor. So we went back at that direct chair throughout the formal one will review. Representative Roger to speak.
For that thing, Commission. So I went back to after we cut these Washington on that policy from 20 this April 2025 as well as 24. And prior we had a 14 game year to year first update the lots of soul capital network in 14 Army and he just made the decision to Washington requested that people be read to be out of town. I know about this water bill on that over last year. He's in Florida with some American so he gave the revision and he did not actually go up with the public comment of that. So it was just but
Vote by the book, Commissioner Carter. Commissioner Council, Commissioner Block. Yeah. Commissioner Parker. Commissioner Hunter. You're about to look up. Commissioner Hunter.
yes,
6 exam. Atlas Alpha. Motion, the second. So the second, Commissioner roll call, Commissioner Hansel. Yeah. Commissioner Carter.
yes,
Commissioner Washington.
yes.
Commissioner Austin. Sherry Linden. Yes. So we are on to H2 pod -24-07-04 regarding the waitlist regarding initiating the occupancy policy, the revision of the language of the last line of the resolution shall state every 18 months the waitlist will be open and pre-applications are being active for 18 months. Pre-applications will be withdrawn after 18 months. However, applicants have the right to be applied. For questions, concerns regarding the resolution.
Washington.
Yes, ma'am.
I thought you said that you would have picked it at reading start over. No.
That's what I just stated.
Okay, I didn't hear it.
No problem.
The language would read, every 18 months, the wait list will be open and pre-application shall remain active for 18 months. Pre-applications will be withdrawn after 18 months. However, applicants have the right to reapply.
Okay.
Vote.
Commissioner Carter,
Yeah.
Commissioner Council, Commissioner Walkman, Commissioner Hawk.
Yeah.
Chairman vote yeah.
Kita unjuk tiga ini
As all the regular business for this evening, got a motion to take this out. Move what? Got a second? Second. Commissioner Carter?
Yes.
Commissioner Council? Commissioner Waukegan?
Yes.
Commissioner Hawk? Gary Lowe? Meeting adjourned. 7:30.
We have one.